Swayam Prabha. Digital India. Educated India.
Hello, my name is Dr. Himanshu Tyagi and I am teaching this course titled Heat and Mass Transfer. In last lecture, we have started a new and very interesting topic which is radiative heat transfer, and we will continue on that. So, let us try and see what we have done in the last class. So, we will first do a brief recap of the previous lecture. We started off by looking one or two very simple examples about the fundamentals of radiative heat transfer, that if we have a sphere which is placed in space somewhere having a finite temperature, and we wanted to figure out just to get some idea that if we increase the temperature, how does the radiative loss change. So, we have seen because it is proportional to T to the power 4, at higher temperatures the rate of radiation actually becomes very significant. So, we got some very high numbers as well, and then just to illustrate some idea that what are the type of problems that we will study in the forthcoming lectures, I kind of gave a glimpse about some of those possibilities by looking at a simple example of two parallel plates, very large infinitely large parallel plates faced with one another having a temperature difference. So, one plate is at T1, another is at T2, and its properties are also slightly different. So, one has emissivity epsilon 1, another has emissivity epsilon 2. So, we can in future this is something that we will explore, that how do we get these type of complicated relationships. So, for now students do not need to worry, because this is something that I have jumped ahead. What I really started off last lecture was some concept of thermal radiation, and as can be seen in all these photographs over here, all these bodies which could be at various temperatures are emitting thermal radiation spontaneously. So, this is the law of nature, that any body which is at certain temperature, for instance, I can have a hot cup of tea in front of me, even my own body at room temperature about 32 to 35 degrees skin temperature, it is going to radiate. High temperature bodies radiate more. So, one of the best examples that we see every day in the morning is the sun. So, we see around the sun the huge radiation is coming, which is sustaining life on earth. We can create fire as well, which is the next photograph shown over here, that also radiates so much that we can see it with our visible eye. Then there is an example of volcano, and just see this lava, it is so hot that it is releasing huge amount of energy, and lot of it is in the visible spectrum. So, we see very high temperature spots over here in yellow, orange and red color, and then we try to compare it with a typical human being. So, I am standing in front of you, you can see me, but that is not because of the emitted radiation from my body, that is perhaps because of all the light or the electromagnetic wave which gets reflected from my body and enters the camera lens. If you were to see me in dark room, then nobody will be able to see me, it will all be dark. But if there is a IR camera which is present inside the dark room, then we can perhaps see some human images like this. So, this is a representative image which is shown over here, and the reason is that our eyes because of evolution or other reason are evolved to see in a particular spectrum, and it is very interesting, we will come to that visible spectrum corresponds to the peak emissions which are emitted by the sun. So, perhaps there could be a link between these two, but our body typically emits at peak of about 10 microns, and there is no way our eye can see at 10 micron. So, we have to make use of IR camera for that. Then we looked into some details about the structure of sun just for curiosity basis, and we came up with this very simple understanding that the black body temperature, effective black body temperature of sun can be taken as a particular value, and we can round it off very close to 6000 Kelvin. And this is actually experimentally concluded that that is a very good assumption, because this value corresponds to a very good black body emission spectra, which is actually compared with the WMO measured spectra for extraterrestrial radiation. Then we looked at one very simple example that where the huge role of radiative heat transfer is there, that as the planets are away from the sun, their temperature tend to decrease. So, the further the planet, the colder it will be, but there is an exception for Venus. So, we looked at that very interesting case, and I asked students to think about it themselves and to figure it out, that why does Venus have this extraordinary high temperature. So, these are some of the curves and tables that we will be using today. So, yesterday's lecture we started off by some notes where we looked at the very simple equation for any general wave. Then I talked about two type of stationary waves, two examples rather, and then if we introduce this omega t term over here, then it can become a moving wave as well. And depending on this sign over here, minus or plus, it can be moved, we can cause it to move in the right direction or in the left direction. So, these are some things I think students already had prior understanding. Then we introduced this equation about the speed of light in vacuum. We noted down its value, and we also correlated it because we are always calling it electromagnetic wave. So, we correlated it with some electrical and magnetic constants like epsilon naught and mu naught, which are given over here, and turns out to be correlated with a very beautiful equation over here. Then the same thing can be done. This was all for vacuum, that is why we put these subscripts naught over here like C naught, lambda naught. If we are calculating the similar values in a particular medium, which could be glass, air, liquid, solid or any other medium, then we remove that subscript naught and then we represent the speed of light as just C, and that is a reduced value of the speed of light. So, when light is electromagnetic wave emitted by sun, travels huge amount of distance, comes through our atmosphere, then let us say there is a swimming pool. So, then when light enters that swimming pool, it is going through water, then its speed actually changes. If the water n, I am writing here from memory, maybe it is about 1.4 or so. So, the speed of light is no longer that big number, it is 2.99 into 10 to the power 8 divided by 1.4 approximately. So, this is just to give a rough estimate. So, instead of 3 lakhs kilometer per second, it can reduce and become 2 lakh kilometer per second in certain cases, if n value is 1.5. So, that just gives us some very useful case study. Then I talked about this word spectral. So, we will be using this word very often in the next few lectures, and whenever we are talking about the word spectral, we are talking about the wavelength dependence of any property. And then I tried to show over here waves, different type of waves which can be created with different wavelengths. So, these are other case studies that we looked at, and I think this is the slide where we had stopped last time, where we were looking at thermal radiation. So, what we were doing over here was we were looking at the spectrum of wavelength, and we started off by drawing the visible spectrum over here. So, this small box, so this is where we will continue today's lecture. So, this box which I am going to color as orange over here, it represents the visible spectra, and the lower wavelengths over here actually represent high energy, that is because of this equation over here, and higher wavelengths represent low energy. So, one photon of high wavelength electromagnetic spectrum will have a lower energy than its cousin or another photon which is having very low wavelength, which means if I have a one photon of red light traveling over here and one photon of blue light, because blue light would have lower wavelength, its energy would be higher. And then we looked at the whole spectra over here. We looked at, so this one I will formally title as the electromagnetic wave spectrum. So, maybe I will write over here. So, this is the electromagnetic wave spectrum. And at low wavelength, we have ultraviolet, then X-rays, then gamma rays, and then very high energy cosmic rays. So, over here in this radiative heat transfer course, our focus is mainly on the thermal radiation, and this we have defined last time, that those electromagnetic waves which are emitted solely due to any body's temperature. So, now with that particular background, let us try and see in more detail about the electromagnetic wave. So, we will try and study its nature. So, let us look at electromagnetic wave. So, as the name suggests, if some students are curious and they want to go into the physics behind it, the best way to study is to look at Maxwell equations. So, these are a set of 4 to 6 equations which actually give the whole governing understanding of the electric field and the magnetic field. So, I will present it here in the simplified form because that full treatment is beyond the scope of this particular course. So, essentially it is just like any other wave. So, in a simple case I can draw it like this, and there could be some variable y and some distance x over here, and we can even have some z component as well. So, if you look at it from the most basic principles, why does the electromagnetic wave get produced? So, I think we remember we have studied it in school time that some sort of accelerating charge, or if there is a oscillating charge, then the nature's property is such, it is governed that it has to emit the electromagnetic wave. So, one simplest way to do that is just take a charge, maybe it is q minus or q plus, and then just accelerate in this direction, then bring it back, it goes over here. So, some sort of a simple harmonic motion or some sort of oscillations if it is given, then it is going to produce an electromagnetic wave. And the frequency with which this oscillation takes place, that determines the frequency or the wavelength of that particular electromagnetic wave. If it oscillates very fast, then the frequency is high. If it oscillates very low, then the frequency is low. But if it is traveling in vacuum, it will only have one velocity, which is c naught. So, this c naught is independent of frequency, wavelength, it only depends on the medium. But in vacuum it is a constant value, and there was very interesting time where a lot of scientists were trying to figure out during the time of Einstein that what is this strange behavior of light, that it so happens that at any velocity, relative velocity we try to measure it, the velocity of light is always constant. It is not like the sound velocity, if we approach a particular, then the velocity will increase. So, it was very interesting thing. If students are interested, they can read it in some relevant literature. That was an interesting time in history. Now, these things are known, and then maybe just for clarity's sake, I can draw a very simple case of an electrical field and the magnetic field over here, and I will represent magnetic field with the symbol H and the electric field with the symbol Y. So, since electric field I will take in a vector form, maybe I will write it like this, and I will just write a very simple wave equation in front of it. So, students will remember it is simply almost like the equation I had written earlier, which I will rewrite over here, that y is simply amplitude multiplied by sin k x minus omega t. So, the only difference is over here we will have the h z component as well. So, we will have the h z component as well, which will turn out to be similar. So, this is one of the simplest cases. So, let me go ahead and draw this particular thing. So, if I know the amplitude, if I know the wavelength, it goes like this, then over here. So, electric field I am showing in the y plane. So, I will put some arrows over there. Why am I putting arrow? Because it is a vector. So, I can show it with arrows. Just like when velocity is a vector, I can show it with arrows. Temperature is not a vector, so I can't show it with arrows. It does not have a direction. Then it so happens that in most cases the magnetic field is in the z plane in this particular case. So, maybe I am going to draw it, let me see if I can draw it neatly, and it goes like that. Once I put the arrows, then I think it will become much clearer. So, the green ones are the magnetic field, the strength of the magnetic field wave. So, it is electric field and magnetic. So, not electric field, electrical component of the EM wave and the magnetic component, then we study it together. So, natural name is the electromagnetic wave, because it has a electrical component and the magnetic component as well. And I think over here we have already defined these k in last lecture. I will just rewrite it again, and then omega is 2 pi into nu. and we can take either multiply them together to get the speed of light, the speed of the electromagnetic wave, or I can do the same thing by writing over here. So, both these expressions are equivalent. Okay. And maybe with blue color I can show over here, this is the amplitude of the electrical field. So, this is E y naught, and similarly we will have over here this amplitude of the magnetic field E z naught. Okay. So, in very simple as under certain conditions, we can write that E y and E z just are a linear product of one another. So, we can correlate it with a constant. Now, very interesting things can happen. So, one or two glimpses of that I am going to give over here, and let us use the next slide for that. So, I want to ask a question to the students. If I represent the electric field component of the electromagnetic wave with the sine wave or cos wave, both are equivalent, what happens if their amplitude starts to decrease with distance? And let me ask it the question graphically over here. So, I am going to write, so any wave I am drawing over here. So, it has a certain amplitude. So, amplitude is A naught. So, what I am writing is y equals to A naught. I can write sine, or perhaps let me write cos, because I have shown in the previous lecture both are kind of equivalent. So, I can write cos k x minus omega t. Now, let me draw another case where it is still a sine wave, but it is kind of bound by a decaying exponential function. So, what we are doing over here is we are creating some sort of a bound which is kind of an exponentially decaying function. And then if I draw the same sine wave, perhaps it may look something like this. The wavelength I am keeping the same, not the amplitude. What I mean is this particular lambda remains same over here. But what is happening to this sine wave? So, it is kind of a sine wave because we recognize the shape, but it has a very unique feature, very strange feature, that its amplitude is actually reducing. So, some sort of decaying is taking place, or I can use many words, some sort of a extinction is taking place over here, and this is something I can write. If I write this equation over here for the bottom case, maybe I will use a different ink. Then I can say I am simply multiplying the previous function with the exponentially decaying function, something like this. And then I still have the original function cos k x minus omega t. So, there are two reasons I am just introducing this new concept. One is that it is very easy to understand it graphically. So, when we see it on the screen, this image is very easy to understand, that the sine wave which was having the constant amplitude as a function of distance. So, try to understand it physically, that when the light is emitted from some sort of a source and then it is travelling along the x direction, and I am going to make the assumption over there that the source over here is a plane in the planar form, which means that the wave front moves parallel to the original source. So, then its amplitude would never change, it would keep on going like this till infinity. That is what is by definition the amplitude of sine wave. But in reality what we see is that any electromagnetic wave, when it goes through certain medium, it may experience certain amount of damping or certain amount of absorption, or it may even be scattered, or some extinction may take place. So, do not worry about those technical terms, but what we can represent it with this mathematical curve over here, and I can say that the amplitude is decreasing with distance, and the primary parameter which is actually playing a huge role over here is this, and even within this capital K is the very important parameter. Why? Let me write capital K as equals to 0. Okay, then what happens? So, exponential to the power 0, we remember, is always 1. which means this bottom equation, blue equation, turns out to be the red equation on the top. Under what condition? If k equals to 0, which means when light is travelling in vacuum, there is some constant k I have not defined, but I do know that I can write it as k equals to 0. Whereas, over here in this particular case, that k is not 0. In fact, I can think of writing its value. The only thing I know over here is, let me give it a round value, something like 10, and the units will not be meters, it will be meter inverse, because k and x have to multiply together in order to get a non-dimensional quantity, because in exponential we must have non-dimensional quantity, which means from a physical point of view, I can write that k inverse is some sort of like an absorption depth or scattering depth or attenuation depth, in which the electromagnetic wave is decaying very fast. So, this example I just thought of giving, although we have not looked at Maxwell equations, we have not looked at the electric field equations in more detail, but just to get an idea that if we are having some sort of a medium, then the light or electromagnetic field, it can get decayed with distance, which is opposite to what would happen in vacuum. In vacuum, it would not decay with distance ordinarily, so it will remain the same amplitude. And it is very interesting that we have this kind of situation, and this one we will call as the attenuated wave. Attenuation means reduction. So, the reduction in amplitude is taking place in this type of a wave, and believe it or not, one of the explanations that we can give why the sun appears red in the evening or in the morning is that most of the blue portion or the green portion, significantly it is scattered or absorbed by the atmosphere, which means its intensity or its amplitude gets attenuated, but the red component coming from the sun, it does not get attenuated that much. So, this thing we can actually make use in our daily life as well. So, this was just a small concept I wanted to share with students. Now, we will formally look at that equation that we have used in the first slide of this particular course, and let me formally write this equation. I think many students have studied it before as well somewhere, very famous equation, and this is known as the Stefan-Boltzmann law. And what does it talk about? This is talking about the black body radiation. So, I will write over here. Okay. The units for this EB will turn out to be watts per meter square, and by definition we will call this quantity as the black body emissive power. Okay. Having written this equation, let us also define what exactly is a black body. Do we see black bodies around us? Does black body look like black in color? What is its definition? So, black body is some sort of a theoretical construct whose definition is as follows. So, let me write it for clarity's sake over here. So, we know that all bodies which are surrounding us in this room, everywhere in nature, all of them are going to emit some sort of, they will have some sort of emission power. It may not be as high as the black body. So, black body is termed as the perfect emitter. Which means what is a black body? Let me draw this surface as the black body. So, let us say there is a rectangular surface A and I am watching it from the side. So, that appears like this line over here. So, this is the isometric view, this is the side view, this is the same body and it is at a temperature T, which means it is going to emit. And why is it emitting? Because this is the law of nature. Any body, any surface, any volume, whether it is gas, liquid or solid, it has to emit whatever its temperature is. The only way it will not emit is if its temperature becomes 0 Kelvin. So, let us say I have a surface which I claim to be a black body and it is emitting, but by definition it has to be the perfect emitter. In all direction it has to emit uniformly, which means if I draw the emissions in this particular case, I will first create a semicircle like this and then I will show that in all directions it is emitting uniformly. Okay. Then I will know that this is a black body, which means just to understand this concept little bit more clearly, if there is some surface which is not a black body, what will this surface behave like? Here it will not be emitting uniformly in all the directions, which means it could be emitting like this, little bit here, little bit there, and in this direction little different. So, over here, so it is not going to be a semicircle, it can be a weird shape like this, little bit more here, little bit less here, something like this. And this we will say is not a black body because it is not emitting uniformly. This is one condition in which it can be classified as not a black body. The other condition is if I keep it at the same temperature as my black body over here. So, let us say this black body I have kept at temperature T1, I find another body and I keep it again at the same temperature, then what we will notice is its emission, even though it can become uniform, it will not be as high as the emission of the black body, which means this semicircle will be slightly smaller than the green semicircle. So, if I can draw it one on top of another, so the green semicircle will have the maximum area over here, which means I can write for this red body over here, that is, this is again not a black body. Why? Because for this red black body, the energy which is being emitted is less than the black body emission. So, I will say that E is less than E B. This is a less than sign, I will draw it again. What it means is if I use the Stephen-Boltzmann law and for my particular body I get some value of E B, I get the value over here for this green body as 100 watts per meter square. Then for this red another body is, then that value we will get for E may be less than 100, it will be equal to maybe 80 or 90 or 70 or 60, it can be any value, but it has to be less than 100. What happens if it is equal to 100? Then we will start calling it a black body, because then the green and the red one will become equal. So, first is black body, second is also black body. What if it happens that it is emitting more than the black body? Maybe black body is emitting 100, I find a new body which is emitting 200. It is impossible, we cannot find it. That is what scientists have figured out, that there is no body which can emit more than the black body, because it will violate nature's law. Now, so this is the first law that we will look at. So, this is known as the Stephen-Boltzmann law, and because it is named after them, this constant is also named after them. This is Stephen-Boltzmann constant. And of course, T to the power 4 we all understand, that is temperature in Kelvin to the power 4. So, very interesting. Now, let us look at Planck's law. Can I move to the next slide? Is this point clear? So, I will move over here, then I am talking about Planck's law. And this is also very historical. It came out in 1901 and very powerful equation Planck has given, which talks about E B lambda. So, compare it with the previous slide. Previous slide was talking about E B. So, we were calling E B as black body emissive power. Okay. Please remember this name, black body emissive power. So, I will write it over here, black body emissive power. But this is not EB, it is EB lambda, which means wavelength dependence is also there. So, instead of calling it emissive black body emissive power with wavelength dependence, so we just make the short form as spectral. So, the spectral word wherever you see, it is actually talking about the wavelength dependence. So, it talks about the spectral black body emissive power, and its unit will now become, earlier it was watts per meter square. Let us go back, here it is watts per meter square. Now, because we have the spectral component also, it will be per wavelength. The wavelength we usually take in microns. So, the new unit for this EB lambda becomes watts per meter square per micron. Okay. Now, let me write this equation. So, there is a constant in the numerator, then denominator has lambda to the power 5, then there is an exponential function over here, then there is another constant C2 divided by lambda t, then minus 1. So, this whole thing is very interesting. I will explain it in just a little while. Why is it interesting? And it is very interesting because, maybe I will draw it over here. It tells me that how much energy is being emitted by some body. So, let us say in our original class we had taken a sphere of a certain radius and a certain temperature. If you, I think temperature we have taken as 300 Kelvin, which means the Stephen-Boltzmann law would have told us how much emissive power is there inside this black body, and that number would have come out as maybe 10 watts per meter square or 1 watt per meter square, depending on its temperature. Planck's law will not only give us that, it will go even further. It will tell us at each wavelength how much contribution is coming in terms of power, so that the whole total becomes 1 watt per meter square or 10 watt per meter square, which means it will not just give a number, it will give us a curve. And I am going to show over here in just a little while that at each wavelength we will get some numbers. How do we get a curve over here? Let us say this is 0.1, 0.3, 0.5, 1 micron, 5 micron, 10 micron. These are all in microns. And what is the curve at each of these x values? I am getting a y value. And that is exactly what Planck's law gave us. It tells us what is the black body emissive power at each wavelength, which means if I calculate this area and then add this area, then add this area or this area, essentially calculate the whole area over here, what we will get is simply EB. In other terms, we will get some relationship like this, that EB is area under this curve. So, area under the curve is simply integral y dx. That is what we have studied in calculus. Over here, what is y? EB lambda. What is dx? Because we do not have y and x over here, right? We have d lambda. And what are we integrating? From 0 to infinity. So, from 0 to infinity, the lambda equals to 0, lambda equals to infinity, and this will be our black body emissive power. So, left hand side is black body emissive power, right hand side spectral black body emissive power integrated with wavelength. So, this is going to one very powerful equation, and we can actually do this particular exercise, integrate this thing with d lambda, put the limits, and what we will get? We will get this equation over here. Isn't it beautiful? So, which came actually first? I think Stephen-Boltzmann law was perhaps 100 or 150 years before Planck's law came out. So, he had found it experimentally. How he finds it experimentally? At different temperature, he can measure the emitted power from a particular body. So, what he found out was, if he doubles the temperature in Kelvin, it is emitting 16 times higher power. If he triples the temperature, then it is emitting 81 times higher power. So, then he plotted the curve and he figured out, okay, let me see what are the plots like. So, that plot is increasing very higher order polynomial. So, he did the curve fit over here with some experimental error and other things. What he figured was that something is happening, y is going x to the power 4. Then he figured out x over here is temperature, y is something like E b. So, just connect them. So, E b is proportional to T to the power 4, and then Boltzmann perhaps comes along. So, I think if I remember history correctly, Stephen did the experiment and then Boltzmann also figured it out theoretically. Then they both put together this particular symbol over here, sigma. So, this in the honor for both scientists Stephen and Boltzmann. So, this is what is given over here, and then Planck's law is come little bit later in 1901, and it is giving the maximum information over here, huge amount of information. Just for the sake of completion, let me also write down values of these constants. So, C1 is simply 2 pi h C naught square. Okay. So, what is the C naught? Speed of light. Speed of light, or I can say speed of electromagnetic wave, because light is only that portion of the electromagnetic wave that we can see. What is this small h? Do students remember what was small h? So, this was Planck's constant. Isn't it beautiful? Planck has given the law, and then he also have the constant which was named after him. I think it came earlier. This was that one, E equals to h nu over here. So, both h is coming here also as well as in this one also. So, Planck's constant. And then what is C2? C2 is also constant, which is again h C naught by small k. Right. And I think students remember from thermodynamics, k was the Boltzmann constant. So, Boltzmann has done lot of contribution. Boltzmann constant. So, these are all constants, h, c naught and k, these are fundamental constants, and I can write those values as well. So, k value is 1.38 into 10 to the power minus 23 joules per Kelvin. H is the Planck's constant, 6.6256 into 10 to the power minus 34. This is in joules second. And I think C naught value we have already given in the previous slide. So, from there you can check, not 0, but C naught value is known to us. From previous slide, please look at it, about 3 lakh kilometer per second. Now, let us go to a fresh slide, okay, and try and see what does Planck law actually give us. So, we have figured out one thing, that Planck law is giving more information than the Stephen Boltzmann law, because it is giving us the whole spectrum of the power. And now, let us try and see if we increase the temperature of a particular body. This whole spectrum is at particular temperature T1. What happens if I double that temperature? I make it T2, where T2 is greater than T1, double. Then that equation, if we plot it, maybe using some sort of a software, it will turn out that the whole thing will increase like this. So, this is T2, which is twice T1. Can we go in other direction? Maybe I will plot T3, which is half the temperature of T1. I will use another ink over here. So, then it goes something like this. So, here temperature is T3, which is T1 divided by 2. These I am drawing by hand, by the way. Okay. Can I do a little bit of switch around? Let me very quickly go to one of the earlier slides over here. So, what I am drawing by hand, this is the exact to scale, but the scale is logarithmic on the y as well as the x axis, please note that. And what is on the y axis? The same variable that we were just drawing. So, it is E b lambda, spectral emissive power. What is on the x axis? We have wavelength. So, these are given in microns. So, these are actual numerical value, exact results are given over here, and this clearly shows. Let us say we have a very cold body, very cold, very icy, because its temperature is 50 Kelvin. So, then the emissive power is very low. We increase its temperature, make it 100 Kelvin, then it becomes like this. then further increase is there, it becomes 300 Kelvin, then the curve has further increased, then 800, then 1000, 2000 and then very close to the solar temperature 50-100 Kelvin. So, what are the things that we are seeing over here? Very clear picture that if we increase the temperature of the body, it is emitting more and more EB lambda, at each lambda EB is increasing. Please remember, it is not going like this, that at this temperature it is like this, then higher like this. No. Why? If it is going like that, then we can say that at this particular wavelength, so I can write over here the E value for the colder, this one, sorry, this is the E colder, is greater than the E hotter body. Why am I calling colder and hotter? Because this is cold, lower temperature, and this is hot at higher temperature, because we can clearly see here temperature is increasing, isn't it? Which means this is wrong. We have to draw the cold body like this. Then if we increase its temperature, everything increases at all wavelengths, which means even at long wavelength, short wavelength, everywhere the E value has increased. I can show it with these arrows over here, isn't it? So, this is one of the takeaway, that we increase the temperature, the emissive power increases huge by huge amount. This is one of the important things that we can understand from this particular curve. But there is another interesting thing that we can see. Why is that interesting? Because if we are just drawing the increasing curve, nature could have also done like this, that it is increasing like this, isn't it? So, all of them have one thing in common, that the peaks are on top of one another. So, this is the lambda max, which means at all temperature lambda max is same. Now, I ask the student, can you please find out lambda max for each of them? What is lambda max? Lambda max is that particular wavelength at which EB is peak for a given temperature. So, let us take my body temperature, I am close to 300 Kelvin. So, if I want to see what is the wavelength for my body temperature which is emitting the maximum spectral power. So, I can go over here and try and see somewhere over here, isn't this? This is the point at which, so this point can give me some value also. Maybe in my body 9 micron is that wavelength at which my body is emitting the maximum amount of power, isn't it? Now, if I were to take a metal, because I do not want to go at 800 Kelvin, I take a metal, take it to 800 Kelvin, I increase its temperature more than 2.5 times, there I can figure out at what wavelength is that metal at 800 Kelvin emitting the maximum. It will come out to be this dot over here. Then I can do it for all the curves shown over here. 1000 Kelvin, this is the peak, 2000 Kelvin, this is the peak, then solar peak is over here, low temperature also, this one also. Now, I can join these peaks, then what knowledge do I get? I can clearly see that as the temperature is increasing from 50 Kelvin to about 6000 Kelvin, this peak dot, this purple dot is actually moving leftwards, which means leftward means over here, it is going in the left. Wavelength is reducing. So, it is not like this. Here lambda was constant for all temperatures, isn't it? Can you see this solid purple line? If it was going in this direction, so I have to put a cross. It is not like this in nature, it actually goes in this direction. So, the peaks very nice curve we can see very clearly, and one more information we can find approximately for sun we can see over here what is the wavelength at which it is peak over here. Maybe it is 0.5 micron, maybe it is showing in the curve like 0.5 micron, which is within the visible spectrum, isn't it very nice? And our eyes are also seeing what is the range in which our eyes can see. So, already this curve is showing very nicely the visible spectrum is all this blue line. So, maybe there is some link that whatever our because we are living on planet Earth, our star is the one we are calling as sun. So, this is the star around which we are rotating. So, our biological this device which is seeing the electromagnetic wave, it is perhaps no coincidence, it is having that function of seeing in that wavelength where the radiation is maximum from the sun. So, that thing is very clearly shown in this particular graph over here. So, 3-4 things we have analyzed very nicely. I hope the students are able to understand that particular point. One last thing we will also take from here, which is this function over here. and let me show it. So, just I can rewrite it like this over here. I can just write that lambda t is some sort of a constant over here, and that constant value I can write, if we have to memorize it, is very close to 3000 micron Kelvin. Okay. And maybe I will also write that this is another law which is called the Wien's displacement law. Wien's displacement, and this is perhaps one of the simplest laws. It is simply saying lambda t is constant for maximum lambda. So, we just remember that part and then we go back to the slide where we were. So, let us go back over here. So, we were looking at 3 temperatures. One is the double temperature T2, one is half temperature T3. Now, we have already done that exercise. So, our students can immediately tell, sir, these wavelengths, now we know if this wavelength is lambda 1, then I already know that this wavelength lambda 2 will be less than lambda 1 and lambda 3 will be greater than lambda 1, and I think this is the way I have drawn it over here. I will recircle them as red color. So, these are the maximum points. These are the wavelengths at which this maximum emission is taking place, is not it? So, we can clearly see from here that we are having different wavelengths at which the peak is happening. Another thing I want to ask students, this we have already done in calculus many times, that whatever curve is there, this is the maximum point. I am drawing any function y as x. At maximum point over here at this dot A, what can I write from a mathematical point of view? So, I think students remember again from the calculus, I can simply write that dy by dx, yani slope at that particular point A is how much? 0, it has to be 0. Now, if it is true for any function y x, it has to be true for this one also. I am plotting E b lambda lambda, which means that all these red points over here, I can call these points A, B and C. I can write at any of those points E b lambda by d lambda has to be equal to 0. There is no physics behind it. This is pure mathematics, that any curve which has a maxima, and similarly for minima also, that if something, a curve has a minima, let us see over here. So, at this minima also, maybe I will call it point m, the same thing happens for that also. So, this we remember from our calculus background. Now, I can calculate this as long as I know the value of E b lambda, and very fortunately because of Planck we know this function, which means this exercise I will leave to the student. Let the student do this exercise. Please calculate this particular thing, keep E b lambda equals to 0. Then what you will get is the Wien's displacement law as the result. What you will figure out is that if we do that particular thing, let me write it more formally over here. I will put a bracket. The maximum at that it happens is simply a constant, and that constant turns out to be very close to 3000. Sorry. So, it is very close to 3000. I like to just remember it as 3000, and this is the Wien's displacement law. Isn't it very nice? I think so. This is very nice. 3 things we have connected with one another. If I calculate the area under the Planck's law curve, I get Stephen-Boltzmann result. If I calculate the slope over here, then I get Wien's displacement curve, which means all 3 are actually given in the Planck's law itself. So, if I know Planck's law, I know all these 2 things ourselves. So, this is a very powerful thing. Let us play around with this number. Let us try and see that if I know the sun's temperature, can I just use the Planck's the Wien displacement law and kind of figure out what the wavelength will be at which the maximum radiation occurs, which means I will formally define the problem like this. The surface that I know, maybe the solar surface T sun is at, round figure I am taking, 6000 Kelvin. So, this is the known, and what do I find out? I want to figure out what is the wavelength at which lambda max occurs. Okay. So, one very simple way is there. I can go back to that particular curve without doing any solution, from the curve itself I can look up over here that this is solar temperature, this is the wavelength at which it will happen. So, my answer will be very close to 0.5 micron. But I want to solve it analytically, let us say. Then how can I solve this? I will use the Wien's displacement law. I will write this as follows. So, I will simply state this is lambda T max divided by T, because this is what will give me lambda, and this lambda T max was a constant C. By the way, this is not speed of light, this is some other constant. So, I will write C prime or some other constant, and that value was simply, rough value is 300 micron Kelvin, that is the units, divided by temperature of the surface. So, my surface is at 6000 Kelvin. Kelvin gets cancelled out. So, my lambda T max becomes 0.5 micron, which means from the sun we have confirmed from the graph also and from the Wien's displacement law. Of course, both are same, but to explain to student I have used two different methods, that we will get similar value 0.5 micron, and that is right in the middle of the visible spectrum, is not it? And 0.5, if we remember, it is the very closest to the green wavelength. So, may I ask quick question to student, then why does not the sun appear green if the peak wavelength is appearing as 0.5 micron? So, that is something you think about, please. Then let me do another continuity of this particular thing. I say okay, for my body also I want to calculate the peak wavelength. So, my body I am taking rough value as 300 Kelvin. So, what I want is that please calculate for my body also what is the maximum wavelength, what is the wavelength at which maximum emission is taking place. So, the same thing I will do, I will simply write C prime divided by 3 by T, and this turns out to be 3000 micron Kelvin, then 300 Kelvin. So, over here it turns out to be 10 microns, which means very roughly if I can draw it over here, this is E b lambda and this is lambda. Over here if I put 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 something like this is 10 microns. So, the solar spectrum I have to draw it in such a way that if this is 1 micron, solar peak will be at 0.5, is not it? And for my body that peak will be at 10 micron. So, how low I have to draw that thing to scale, if I am drawing it will come out to very, very small like this, because solar itself is like this. Then for the body it will be, has to be below the higher temperature over here, which means it will be here and then whole thing is over here, very low, very low, very low over here, then it is going over here. So, the green curve is for the T for body, which is about 300 Kelvin, and the red curve is for the T for sun, which is about 6000 Kelvin. So, these are things we are just playing around with these numbers, and with the help of these curves it is very easy to figure out what type of, just see the asymmetry between these two curves, the red one and the green one, huge difference is there, and that is to illustrate the huge difference between 300 Kelvin and 6000 Kelvin. So, we will take one or two examples, maybe I will move to the next slide. Let us take one or two examples and try and see what kind of results we will get if we are trying to calculate for some body which is between my human body and the sun, the temperature is somewhere in between, and when we were kids there used to be lot of incandescent bulbs around. These days they have mostly been replaced with CFL and LED, and the CFL and LED are giving us light, but it is not because of the thermal radiation. Please remember that we can also have laser pointers going around, and laser pointer is also not, it is giving light, but it is because of the stimulated emission, that is the part LASER. SE stands for stimulated emission. It is not becoming hot and then giving light. If I take a match and I rub it around the match box, so I have lit a match and I can light a candle as well. So, that match, that candle, the sun, the old type incandescent bulb, they were all giving thermal radiation. So, the main visible spectrum that we would get from there is because of the thermal radiation. If I have a LCD screen or a LED screen, that is not giving light because of thermal radiation. Then there are some other phenomena which is taking place over here. Maybe it could be laser, it could be other emitted radiation, maybe in the LED there is a drop in the electron level, and that is emitting a photon, but that is not the thermal process. Okay. So, please we will differentiate between that. So, I think for today we will stop over here. When we will come back, we will look at that example of incandescent lamp. And what we would like to do over here is, if this is the old type incandescent lamp, which we see lot of images that Edison is given the credit for discovering or for inventing this process. And then what we would like to do is, if I know the temperature over here for this particular filament, which is very high temperature, I want to figure out first of all how much energy is being emitted by this particular bulb. So, I want to calculate the value of Q dot. And second thing I want to figure out is how much energy is actually being emitted by this particular bulb, not the total, but the one between the visible spectrum, between 4 micron and 7 micron. So, these are two questions we will answer in the next lecture, and why are they important to us? So, I will put Q1 over here and this is Q2. This is number 2. First one is important to us. Why? Because that is what is giving us the electricity bill. Whatever is the total heat, total emission of that particular power, that has to be equal to I square R, and that is what is my total power electrical. Which means if I have a 100 watt bulb, I will figure out that okay, it is emitting 100 watt. Okay, that is what I am going to pay for my electric bill. So, Q1 is important. Why is Q2 important? That bit, because if I want to study by putting that particular 100 watt bulb, I need to figure out that how much of that 100 watt electrical energy is actually coming back to my table over here in the form of visible light, not in the form of heat or not in the form of other thing, which means this is very important to us from a practical consideration point of view. And what we will calculate will turn out to be a very interesting number. So, I think because of lack of time, I will stop over here. Let us very quickly go through what we have looked at today. So, we continued with the electromagnetic wave spectrum. Very quickly we went through this. We looked at all the different type of wavelengths. Then we started to look at the nature of electromagnetic wave, and I referred to the students that those in looking in more details, please go ahead and study the Maxwell equation yourself. I have just presented a very simplified planar plane polarized wave over here with the help of the green and blue color. Then we looked at some concept of attenuation of wave as well. So, we will not go into the mathematics of it, but I just wanted to share it with students that what is the physics behind it. Then we formally looked at the Stephen-Boltzmann law, which will give us the black body emissive power. Then we defined black body as the perfect emitter of radiation in all directions and uniformly. Then we looked at the Planck's law, which is very powerful law, which is giving us the function EB lambda as a function of lambda for different type of temperatures. So, we can play around with it. We figured out if we just integrate Planck's law to calculate area under the curve, what we will get is the original Stephen-Boltzmann law. If we differentiate it, put the slope equals to 0, we will get Wien's displacement law. So, essentially there are not 3 different laws, it is just the Planck's law is most powerful. From that Stephen-Boltzmann law we can get Wien's displacement law as well. And I think this is where we will stop for today. We looked at the Wien's displacement law, and this is the point we will continue in the next lecture. So, I hope students found this concept very interesting, and I thank all the students. Thank you.